everybody, welcome to one more round with Josh Norris. Today I'm super excited. I got Patryk Gawlak with me. He's the owner of Peak Cleaning and Peak STR Management. True American success story. I'm super excited to dive in, get to know you better through this, but you guys are going to get a ton out of this, so make sure to like, comment, subscribe to the channel. You don't want to miss episodes like this. So Patryk, welcome, man.
Yeah, no, happy to be here. Thank you for having me.
Absolutely.
Exciting.
Yeah, it's funny because I know we've been a part of the same organization, but kind of been crossing paths with the Arte Syndicate, and then we had connected at the Not Most People event, and I got to know a little more of your story. It's pretty amazing what you've been able to accomplish at such a young age, but you're originally from Poland. What's it like coming here? I know you were young, but being from somewhere else.
Yeah. I think it gives you a different perspective on things, right? Kind of looking at maybe the various sides of the world, various sides of life. I mean, I always comment on that I think that's given me a little bit of perspective. I've got family in Poland that growing up, living on farms, some family members, no running water, no electricity kind of thing.
Wow.
So seeing that kind of side of the world, coming to the U.S., I was pretty young, 7, 8 when I came over, but lived outside Chicago, which doesn't have the best reputation. Yeah. Chicago, Cicero, Al Capone's from there, that kind of thing. That's the kind of history that we came from. But yeah, no, so just kind of growing up through that, kind of moving our way up through, various different houses growing up, moving all over the place. And yeah, I think it just always helped kind of have that different perspective, right, of like seeing how, different individuals, different people in different backgrounds live.
Yeah.
And seeing that to now even kind of comparing where we are today, where I am today, it's been a fun journey, but one step at a time.
Awesome. So what do you think it is from somebody who came here from somewhere else? Like, what do most Americans miss about being Americans because they were just here? Like me, I'm born and raised here. Like, what would I be shocked at being from somewhere else?
Yeah, I think, and especially nowadays, there's so much taken for granted. I truly think there's still so much opportunity here. The American dream's still alive and well, and I'm a happy representation of it.
Yeah.
So I think just recognizing that how much opportunity there is from a business perspective, from a growth perspective, nowadays even just how interconnected the world is, internet, information, even connecting between one another, right? It's at the click of a button. So just realizing that all of that is super accessible. And I think, oftentimes taken for granted nowadays.
Yeah, and before you started your business career, which we'll get into that, which is a really fun topic, but you were pre-med?
Pre-med. Thought I was going to become a doctor. I'm glad I ran away as soon as I started seeing the dollar signs on the on what that degree would be. First one in my family to go to college, so I was honestly, I mean, looking back or looking when I was at that time, it was just one of those things. What's like the highest, most glamorous, highest paying job that I can think of, and it was either going to be lawyer or doctor. Lawyer, not so much. I didn't like books. I didn't like history. So I'm like, that's not the path for me. So let's go the science route. So yeah, I ended up getting a degree in biology, bio pre-med. Was on track to do an MBA out in Chicago as well. And it's probably like junior year of college. I just kind of like paused and looked at it of like, wait, am I doing this just because it was that one idea, when I was younger and it's the only thing I could think of, or, is this really what I want to do?
Yeah.
Spent some time just kind of, networking, meeting with, different doctors. I had some volunteer opportunities I was working through as well to kind of just get more of that firsthand experience. And I realized, if I'm trying to chase, more of, I don't know, I think it was truly more of like the business world that excited me, or just kind of the opportunity to be able to do something to help at scale, I think is what kind of excited me to begin with. But I didn't think that was the exact position that was meant for me. So I think if I wasn't 100% sure, I was like, that maybe isn't the best path, right? Because it's a lot of commitment, a lot of time, a lot of money financially as well to go through another 4 or 5 years of school after, and then a huge path down the road. So
were there any defining things in there that are like, okay, this is why it's not for me?
Not so much. Not any defining moments. I think just one of those things, I guess, just being able to, take in new information and reassess instead of just going down the one path maybe they had in mind. So maybe it's just that of just kind of looking back now and just being willing to, take in more information, changing information, and correct course where needed.
Yeah. So how on earth did you get into like a commercial cleaning business, and now you do like AirBNB rentals and all all these things?
Yeah, it makes a lot of sense, right? Bio pre-med to had a little stint in the corporate consulting to then into cleaning homes, cleaning toilets, that kind of thing. I always chuckle about it, but I think what's that saying of like life makes more sense looking back instead of looking forward, right? No, I think it's one of those things that just kind of fell into place by accident, but kind of like by a happy accident that it's maybe where I was meant to be. I don't usually put things in those terms, but I think it's been working out for well for a reason. Yeah, no, I gave you a little bit of background off camera here, but the business Peak Cleaning that I operate, own and operate, it really started as a family operation, as a way to help my mom. She had decades of cleaning experience back in Chicago. 07, 08 came around, kind of wiped everything down. She had a little business there that just kind of got tore under. And it was really hard for her to get restarted. So back in 2010 is when she came out here to Arizona, just started what she knew. So one house at a time, one customer at a time, barely speaking the English language, but providing a 5-star service, quality work that she could put her name on. And that helped her build a little bit of a customer base. So much so that it kind of helped pay the bills, etc. But she was never able to really pick it up after that. So again, fast forwarding, I was in the consulting world after school, after college, and then it was just an idea to help her out a little bit. I'm like, here, let me put together a website. Let me put together more of a formal business entity behind it. Let me find some help in the field for her to help on the job sites. Let me find some help then in the office because I could only take so many calls while I'm still working a full-time job as well. And then just one thing led to another. Ended up seeing kind of the opportunity there and jumped into it on a full-time basis. And over the years, like I mentioned, we've scaled essentially from a team of 1 to about a team of 50 at this point, between our office and the field. And truly, we're just getting started. We're just putting in some higher level management roles throughout this year, and really just kind of putting the groundworks of being able to grow and being able to scale beyond this. So it's been fun. It's been fun, and a learning journey along the way.
Yeah, well, so if I got my timeline right, you started maybe 2018, 2019?
Yeah, 2018. Yeah.
So you're getting things off the ground, and then 2020 hits, right? How did that affect your business particularly?
That was rough. Yeah. So background again, we started really in the residential space, the residential cleaning, the weekly, bi-weekly, monthly type cleanings. Right around even 2018, I mean, we started kind of dabbling a little bit in the vacation rental space, AirBNB space, and that was just such a niche kind of market, and it has its own operational challenges every day, 7 days a week, 365 a year. Holidays are always the busiest. It's got its own challenges from that perspective. Always an ever-changing workload on site. You never know who's coming in and out of homes. Whether it's a bachelorette party or a nice older couple. So ever-changing workload. It's always kind of craziness on a day-to-day basis. But that to say, that ended up kind of taking over as most of our workload, and even nowadays, it's probably 80-90% of our work. Pausing then, going back to COVID, almost put us under. 80-90% of business we lost overnight, because everything then was Airbnb, travel-related, travel lockdowns, people weren't traveling, people weren't staying, right? So it was rough. It was rough.
What went through your mind during that period of time? I mean, because I know what went through my mind, because we had very similar type of thing where I didn't necessarily lose all my business, but I had a lot of customers because we do advertising with one of our companies, Aftershock, and like 70% of our people paused or cut back their budget like that. I'm like, oh my goodness. What went through your head through that time?
Just trying to be creative, trying to come up with strategies just to withstand, essentially. Try and keep our team on payroll. I took a pay cut entirely. I was luckily still at that time doing the consulting work, so I was still able to have some personal income coming in. But outside of that, I'm like, focusing on our team, being able to push through this. I knew it wasn't going to be a forever thing. I think maybe just the optimism inside me led that was going to be the answer. Like, hey, we'll get through this. Couple weeks, couple months, we'll see how long it goes. Luckily, I think maybe the fact that we were here in Arizona, the lockdowns are always a little limited here, right, compared to elsewhere in the world. So I think that kind of came to our benefit. With that, then travel really started picking up. International travel closed down, domestic travel picked up. So I think a lot of even the growth we've seen in the last few years was kind of at the tail end of that, just pushing us back up. So no, the biggest thing was just, how do we get through this? How do we withhold? How do we make it through day at a time? We had some customers that were super generous, loved the partnership that we were able to offer, and same thing, maybe paused or still offered to pay for services even though those were canceled. So we had some good souls there that kind of helped as well. But more than anything, it was just being able to push through another day.
That's awesome, and that's really what it is in any situation you come at. It's like it's a season. You don't know how long the season's going to last necessarily.
Absolutely.
But that was a weird season. It sounds like your positive attitude kind of helped you get through that.
That's all you can do, right?
Yeah, well, it's exactly what are you gonna do? Change the pandemic?
No, and it's one of those things I talk about. I mean, I even share with my team, and if we look at even growth goals that we have right now, everything just one step at a time. One step at a time. Let's figure out what the next step is. What's the next little step even that we can take each and every day, and we'll get there. So whether it's coming from a bad place to better, or even now from better to even better, right? Like it's just you got to break it down into the step by step and just keep moving.
So you have a team, you said, of about 50 now.
Yeah.
What do you look for when you're hiring people? Like, is there anything that you specifically want to see?
Yeah. I think I've learned over time, probably through bad hires, bad fits, and just mistakes along the way. Truly, I think I've learned that attitude is hard to teach, or like personality is hard to teach. You can't change it. I think that's kind of internal, or the person themselves can change it over time, but not coming into a team-based environment. So more than anything, not necessarily skill, not necessarily background, but just looking at character, at personality. One of the things I definitely picked up from Arte was the big focus on core values, and just being very clear about those in advance of what are core values for our company, how do we just kind of make decisions, what do we stand for, and that's been a pretty good filter as well to just kind of assess people where they are. And even during our hiring, like we'll add in, we have that even as a question, which of these core values resonate with you? Why? Give a little info as to why exactly. And during our interview processes, we'll even ask about that of just some scenarios or examples, or like what would you do in this case, what would you do in that case, and keep tying it back to the values. And that's been a pretty good guiding light metric for us.
I like that, yeah, because it's a blueprint of how you make decisions. What are some of those core values?
Yeah, number one, top of the list is do the right thing always. And that goes into our industry. I mean, on our office side, how we deal with customers, how we deal with teammates, and it's always about being a win-win, always trying to find, the win at the end. On our field side as well, there's always issues that happen. Things break, things get damaged. There's always some kind of problem. So just being able to do the right thing, whatever's right by our team, by our customers, and for us. Continuous improvement is one, which I always call out to the team. Like I don't know anything. I'm still learning each and every day, and I think as long as we all share that of being able to, do the job right, but also always be open to improvement. That's a huge one. Fun and positive relationships is one of them as well. Of just being able to have more than just a work-life balance, and hopefully build something sustaining, but also something positive for our teammates to look into. So I think that I've hit 3 out of 5. So.
Yeah.
Yeah,
no,
all positivity driven.
Yeah, no, and it's great because again, those are filters on how you can basically hire, see things, make decisions, which is amazing. So you've grown, I mean, a really decent sized business. Obviously it's paid pretty well. It's continuing to thrive. Have you had anything that like has been a tweak or an adjustment that you made that really moved the needle for you?
Getting out of my own way, honestly. I think I've always been one of those that let me figure it out myself, let me do it myself, let me not ask for help. I've got this, and until I'm underwater, that's when I'll pull my hand up and ask for help, kind of thing.
Yeah.
So I think trying to get away from that as a natural reaction, and I think that kind of goes hand in hand with, learning how to delegate at the beginning, bringing on teammates that I still at the very beginning probably micromanaged or still wanted to show the right way of doing things, being super, super hands-on. So I think getting out of my own way there, learning how to delegate, learning how to build a team, learning how to, even sharpen up roles and responsibilities, see where things should live, see where things are kind of best suited in whose hands, and then just trusting the team's going to run with it. And I think that's been huge for us.
Yeah, and you said you recently just added some people to the executive team of yours. What were you looking for in there, and how did you come to the determination that now is the time?
Yeah. I think it's one of those things that, I always try and be very forward-looking, and even for the business or personally, of trying to have, what's a year from now going to look like, what's 3 years a year from now going to look like, 5 years even, if I can think that far ahead. But so it was one of those things of recognizing that, a role. So the most recent role that we brought on, really kind of like a general manager, operations manager role. Brenda, who had joined our team, comes with 30 years of management experience. Most recently, she was at Zillow Offers. Locally here. So really just great experience, and honestly even more experience than I have in that space. So kind of recognizing that, this is an individual that can bring a lot more to the table than even I can offer for that specific skill set. But as to when it was the exact time, it was, again, recognizing that maybe a year from now that was going to be needed, maybe 6 months from then it was going to be needed, and just realizing that, I guess my own workload or things that I had on my own plate were suffering or I couldn't get through because I was still so involved in kind of day-to-day basis. So just recognizing kind of, where the cost benefit there. It was an investment for us to bring on and start bringing on more higher level roles, but also there's value that comes out of it. So just making that decision there.
Well, I like it because it's building your business for the long term, which is funny. So tomorrow at our church, we're actually doing a little breakout session / like teaching and coaching, and that's the name of it, is building business for the long term. And they gave us the title, so I was like, okay, then we just had to fill in the blanks and stuff. But that's one of the things, like begin with the end in mind. Always think about, steps ahead, when you're going to need to hire, what does that person look like, what responsibilities they're taking on.
And obviously it's one of those things that you can't over perfect. You're not going to know exactly until you kind of start doing that as well. So it's one of those things that you just have to kind of run with and have an idea in advance, but also be willing to flesh it out a little more as it comes to fruition. But you're right. I mean, just thinking with the end in mind and having a little bit of a process there.
Yeah, and so you're obviously into personal development, and you're part of the RTA Syndicate. What got you into that?
I can't pinpoint any specific moment or any specific time. I'm sure, I don't know, maybe around high school, college age, it was just one of those things of just a desire to get better, right? And I mean, growing up, I never really had too many positive role models. Like I said, coming from Poland as immigrants, we were, kind of the family that we had here, my mom, my brother, 2 younger sisters, that's really all we had. So not too much in terms of like, positive role models or examples to pursue after. So it was one of those things of trying to create it myself or trying to find that, externally. And I don't know if it was any specific books or just kind of same thing, just keeping an open mind to that. But
are there any books that you really like that you recommend to either young entrepreneurs or people that are young in their career trying to, make a name for themselves?
Read a ton. I've got a giant bookcase. So I'm going down the list in my head of like which one's the hit. No, I think one of the first ones, and I know a lot of people bring this up, but Rich Dad Poor Dad was definitely one that stood out to me. Got me interested in kind of more the business side of things, real estate side of things, and just kind of looking at how money flows, how time flows, that kind of thing. And that was probably end of high school, beginning of college that I came across that book, and maybe one of the first. Alchemist is a really good book.
Okay.
Paulo Coelho.
I haven't read that one.
Highly recommend. Yeah, it's more of a fiction book, but good story behind it. On the business side of things, there's a lot of good ones that same thing I kind of wish I came across sooner than I did, but Profit First is a good one. I mean, looking at kind of any business that you start, making sure that the numbers are there in place. So Profit First is a good one. EOS is a good one if you've come across.
EOS, no.
Traction, I think is the title of the book.
Yeah,
Traction. It talks about the EOS system. So same thing, kind of having that structure in the business. So that kind of goes back to, like I was saying, I was more of the mindset of just, pushing through, figuring out things left and right. So
Traction's a good book. If I remember correctly, isn't that the one that like you do the one-page business plan, you have your rocks of what you're doing.
Exactly.
And so you always have like this running list of things that are going on, but then you have like the goals for that particular quarter and all that.
Exactly.
I like that a lot because I've incorporated that in kind of how I plan things.
Yeah, and that's what I mean, that structure that I think, we don't have internally until we learn either from somebody else or learn by doing. And so I think, looking at those resources and I think sometimes that structure helps. And I've always been, I think we were chuckling about that at the Not Most People event, that we're not that process driven. We just like go do. Well, how did you say, like you go to A to Z, but you skip some stuff.
You might go A to D and then D to G and then go back to B because you forgot, and then you get to Z eventually.
You get to Z eventually. Yeah. I've always been the same way. I'll get it done, but the path might change. But that's one of those things of, again, building in that structure, I think just makes it so much easier as the team's grown, as the business has grown, just having some of that structure. So something like the EOS system has definitely helped of kind of, putting in those boundaries around things. And it's definitely helped.
Yeah, no, that's huge. Are you a big podcast guy or?
A little bit. When I get some free time on walks, runs, or in the gym.
Any favorite ones that, whether business or personal?
Yeah. Real AF, Andy Frisella, coming from Arte, so Andy's and Ed's podcast, those I'll definitely subscribe to and listen to here and there. One I came across recently that I really liked, Hormozy, Alex Hormozy, the game, I think it's called. A lot of valuable content there. He's recently done some stuff with Ed Milet and I think Andy as well, if I'm not mistaken.
He's fascinating. I didn't know anything about him until about a month and a half ago, and then I started seeing all these like YouTube reels on him. Like, oh, cool dude. And then he was on Ed's podcast.
Yeah.
And then, but hearing his story, I mean, he had a successful gym business, and then it failed, went under. Then he started basically a training program for, fitness facilities, and really more like the small Orange Theory types, the smaller, studios. And he sold for $52 million.
Insane.
I mean,
insane. And along the way, I think some software businesses, some other businesses. He's accomplished a lot in a very short time. Definitely, a great role model, right, of what's possible. At a pretty young age, I think he's probably early 30s and has already had a couple really big exits. So.
Yeah, it's big. So, what about you? What are some goals with your companies? I know you have a vision for it. What does that look like? Yeah,
well, again, one step at a time. I think I've learned that as well. Can't over perfect, over project, and got to take it one day at a time. But peak cleaning. Again, we've grown quite a bit. Still a great 5-star reputation, which we take really close to heart. It's still, again, my name on it, my mom's name on it. So we're still really close in the day-to-day to make sure it's rolled out as we would. I know there's so much potential there. So within the short-term rental space, we've got still a pretty good market here to cover. Here meaning in the Valley. Most of our work's in Scottsdale, Phoenix, Mesa areas. We're pretty centralized there, but there's a lot of potential just within our local market here. Next couple of years, I mean, the idea has been tossed around of maybe looking at different states, different areas, whether that be on just a natural growth perspective of opening up different offices in different areas, maybe a franchising thing. So more growth on the Peak side. I brought up Peak STR, which is really kind of a side project that came out of Peak Cleaning. We've had some customers that keep reaching out. We do a lot of kind of like middle management type services in our turnover cleaning. So we've had some customers that have been reaching out, so we've signed up a few for that offering. But that started even from some rentals that I own and turned into Airbnbs, and so just kind of saw it firsthand, saw what that looks like, and realized that it is something that we can offer professionally as well. So both of those, I mean, there's a lot of potential that I think will easily keep my hands busy for the next 3 to 5 years for sure. Outside of that, we'll see.
Awesome. Well, so with these, one thing that's always been fascinating to me is marketing. Like, how do you get the word out? Like, what in commercial cleaning is very niche, right? What does that look like for you? How did you start getting customers? How did you market yourselves?
Yeah. Well, surprising. I mean, if you look online, we still have no real web presence, no social media presence. Our Facebook is bare, our Instagram is bare, and we're still doing.
And you're thriving, exactly.
And we're doing pretty well. Yeah. A lot of it has just been natural organic growth, referral based. So just focusing on the service that you provide, doing a good job, and then referrals come from that, of course. SEO, in terms of like actual marketing, though, SEOs work quite well for us. I think, especially within this industry, and that's something that just kind of fascinates me looking at, the cleaning industry or kind of these, maybe smaller, unsexier type businesses, that a lot of them still nowadays don't have much of a web presence, much in terms of technology, in terms of back end to be able to help with the operations. So just, taking more of a modern approach to some of these quote-unquote unsexy businesses and focusing on our web presence. Our website was kind of a huge starting point, right, of making sure that that's attracting leads, having enough information, having a booking platform on there, et cetera, to allow to kind of have customer self-service. And that partnered with SEO, so on a lot of like the vacation rental related terms, we're popping up first page. So oftentimes, right, if there's no brand specific that services that specific need, people are going right to Google. They're going down the list. What's the first 1, 2, 3 companies that come up, and there we are. So it's worked quite well.
Well, and it's I ask that question because it is such a niche business, and I think there's this lens that people have when you have a business. You got to Instagram and Facebook and LinkedIn and your website and spend money here. Well, yeah, maybe, but really, who's your customer? And
And
where are
they-
your customers? Where are they
Yes,
looking?
Yes.
For you, yeah, obviously Google. That's one thing I've always loved about pay-per-click advertising. Even back to '08 when they they rolled it, I think '04, but I was working at Gannett, and pay-per-click just like, this is amazing. You mean I can just jump ahead of all my competitors just by paying? Okay, let's do that. So and that's
and when you run the cost, right, of like what that click is or even what that acquisition per customer, and it's like, all right, if they bring in X amount, I mean, it's a very, you've got to know your numbers, but yeah, it can become very, very doable very quick.
Well, and you just got to know what people are searching that are like further down in the funnel, right?
Yeah,
so they're ready to purchase. You know, if they're looking for, commercial cleaning company in Phoenix, chances are they're pretty far down in that funnel. Yeah, you want that click, you want that traffic.
No, but you're absolutely right. I mean, it's finding the customer where they are and where is it most likely to be most helpful and most informative and most likely to be found.
Yeah.
And to your point, I mean, there's value in building the brand, building the social media, building billboards, whatever it may be. There's definitely value there, and I think it's all possible. But same thing, comes in stages, and you've got to look at what's the most impactful at that given moment, right?
Yeah, exactly. And it's good to be famous within your industry.
Yeah.
But if you're not a B2C company, then I mean, you don't need to have billboards and all this kind of stuff, but you need to be super famous, and you need to go to trade shows, you need to do these kind of things.
Yeah.
So.
No, and I think there's so much information out there nowadays, right? And so even as a business owner, right, there's so much information you could take in, but you do have to kind of be able to filter through that. And that's a little bit harder sometimes, right? Especially on your first go round of what information to trust, what information to go off of. But
well, that's where wisdom comes in, right? Just over time, you either make a bunch of mistakes, you see something that works well, and then you start filtering more to the things that work well, and then it's like, oh, cool. But nobody has that right away.
Of course.
Why,
And that's part of the fun of the game, right?
That's it. That's it, man.
I know you've had a crazy background as well. Many businesses behind you.
Yeah, no, it's
and I'm
been
sure
fun.
that's led to a lot of the wisdom over time too, right?
Totally. I mean, if I could talk to I guess it would have been my 26-year-old self when I went, into business for myself. I could pour so much information, but my 26-year-old self wouldn't have listened. Yeah. That's the problem. He'd have been like, I know.
Too hard-headed at that point?
Yeah, of course you know. And then I could have been like, hey, here's what's about to happen to you in the next 5 years. Let's avoid some of these things. But, it's like you said, it's always easier looking backwards, right?
Yeah.
So
that's part of the fun. That's part of the fun, right?
It's great, man. I know you're going to continue to thrive and succeed, and anything I can do to help you, please let me know.
Absolutely,
guys, if you need commercial cleaning, Patryk can help you out.
Residential cleaning, Airbnb, turnovers, management,
all that. How can they find you?
Online, so peakcleaningservice.com. Again, type us up on Google and we'll pop up right there. Peak STR Management is the other arm of the business now too. And then myself, Patryk KG on Instagram. So awesome. Not much of a presence out there, but we're working on it.
Awesome. Well, guys, I know you got a lot out of this. I mean, this is truly the American dream that we all hear about. And make sure that you leave a comment for us, subscribe, don't miss any of these episodes. We appreciate it, and we'll see you next time.